Goodbye. Zeke stood alone at the edge of the schoolyard, his long alien fingers holding the small graduation cap. It didn't really fit on his strange ridged head, but he wore it anyway. The humans laughed a little when he walked on. Stage. His speech was short and awkward. "I'm basically grown human," he said loudly, his voice breaking. Some kids clapped. Others whispered and giggled. He smiled weakly, trying to hide how much it hurt. Later, while everyone was taking pictures, hugging parents, and throwing their hats in the air, Zeke quietly stepped away. No one noticed at first. He walked toward the parking lot, his strange blue skin shining faintly under the lights. He left behind his diploma, still lying on the ground. When his closest friend, Mia, finally turned to look for him, he was already gone. She found a small note where he had been standing. The paper was folded neatly. She opened it with shaking. "Hands and read. Be back when I'm ready." Above the Earth, high in orbit, a sleek silver shuttle waited. Zeke stood at the base of the ramp, staring up at it. The stars above looked cold and far away. A soft voice came from behind him. "Zeke, are you sure?" He turned. An older alien, tall, dark-eyed, watched him. His name was Thurl, a guide from Zeke's home world. "Yes," Zeke said quietly. "I don't belong here. Not with them." Thurl nodded and motioned to the ramp. "Then come. You have a long journey." As Zeke stepped onto the ramp, he looked back one last time. Below him, the earth glowed soft and blue. He could see the tiny lights of the city, the little streets where he had walked to school, the park where he had once played baseball with the humans, even though he didn't really know the rules. He remembered how the ball had slipped through his long fingers, and everyone had laughed kindly. But inside, he had felt heavy. He thought of Mia, who always smiled at him even when others stared. She had taught him how to tie his shoes, how to say thank you, how to shake hands the human way. She had told him, "You're just like us, Zeke." But he wasn't. Not really. He felt it every day in the way he talked, in the way he moved, in the way everyone's eyes stayed on him a little too long. He belonged somewhere else, so he didn't wave goodbye. He didn't cry. He simply stepped inside the shuttle. Inside, the air was cool and smelled like metal. He sat in a seat near the window. Thurl sat across from him, pressing buttons on a small glowing screen. The ship hummed softly as it prepared to leave. "You've been on Earth a long time," Thurl said, not looking up. Zeke nodded. 16 human years. Long enough to forget who you are?" Zeke didn't answer. He just stared out the window, watching the curve of the Earth slowly shrink as the shuttle rose higher and higher. Clouds covered parts of the ocean. The sun's light sparkled on the surface. It was beautiful. He would never say it out loud, but he thought Earth was the most beautiful place he had ever seen. Yet he never felt at home there. Thurl finally looked at him and asked, "What do you expect to find when you get back?" Zeke's hands tightened in his lap. "I don't know, but it has to be better than feeling like a mistake." Thurl tilted his head, studying him. "You think your own kind will accept you more easily?" Zeke hesitated. "Aren't they supposed to? I mean, I'm one of them." Thurl just smiled faintly and turned back to the screen. The ship shuddered gently as it left Earth's orbit. Zeke watched the planet grow smaller and smaller until it was nothing but a glowing dot. His chest felt tight. He told himself it was just the change in air pressure, but a small voice in his head whispered something else. "You're leaving the only home you've ever known." He shook the thought away. He was going home. That's what everyone told him. Home. Hours passed as the stars stretched into long lines outside the window. The ship moved fast, cutting through space like a silver arrow. Zeke tried to sleep, but he couldn't stop thinking. He thought about the time the human kids painted his face at a festival. They used bright colors and laughed because he didn't understand why. He thought about Mia teaching him to whistle, though his mouth wasn't shaped quite right and the sound came out strange. He thought about the way humans cried when they were happy or sad, or even when nothing really happened at all. On his planet, he knew no one cried. He wondered what it would feel like. Thuril spoke again after a long silence. You should rest. The trials begin soon. Zeke looked at him sharply. Trials? Thuril only nodded. Zeke swallowed hard, but said nothing. He closed his eyes and leaned back in the seat. Behind his eyelids, he saw Earth again. The park, the baseball, the lights of the city at night, and Mia, smiling. He whispered to himself, Goodbye, Earth, but it didn't sound strong. It didn't sound sure. Behind him, on Earth, Mia stood in the empty schoolyard, still holding his note. She looked up at the stars and whispered, Come back soon. In the cold silence of space, Zeke didn't hear her, but maybe. Somehow, he felt it. Asterisk. The alien home shuttle landed with a deep, heavy sound on the alien planet. Dust rose around it, golden and glittering under a strange purple sky. The air was sharp and thin, making Zeke's chest tighten as he stepped outside. He expected to feel something, relief, happiness, pride, but all he felt was small. The ground beneath his feet was cold and hard, almost like stone. Black mountains cut the horizon like jagged teeth. Strange lights danced across the sky. Not stars, but something alive, moving, watching. Thuril stood tall beside him, his long robe swaying in the wind. Welcome home, Thuril said. His voice was calm, but there was no warmth in it. Zeke looked around. In front of them, a huge gate opened. Beyond it stood the city, tall, sharp towers that glowed faint blue, roads like veins of silver weaving through them. Strange creatures moved about, all of them his kind, yet none of them looked at him. No one smiled. No one welcomed him. Zeke swallowed hard and followed Thuril into the city. Inside the gates, the streets were busy, but everything felt quiet. His people walked in perfect lines. Their steps made no sound, no laughter, no talking, just silence. An order. Zeke tried to match their pace, but his feet dragged. He could feel their eyes, sharp and cold, watching him as he passed. He heard someone whisper, He smells human. Another one muttered, Look at his hands, too clumsy. He kept his head down, pretending not to hear. But inside, his heart sank. At the end of the main street stood an enormous building. Black walls stretched high into the sky. A glowing emblem above the door pulsed like a heartbeat. Thuril stopped in front of it and turned to him. This is where you begin, Thuril said. Inside, you will face the elders. Zeke frowned. Elders? What do they want? To see what you are made of. The doors opened with a hiss, and Zeke stepped into a dark hall. Inside, the air was colder, heavier. 6 tall figures stood in a circle, their faces hidden under hoods. Their eyes glowed faint red under the shadows. Zeke, one of them said, their voice echoing. You have returned. Zeke nodded nervously. Yes, another spoke. You left as a child. Now you claim to be grown. I am, Zeke said, though his voice sounded weak even to him. The tallest elder stepped forward. Then prove. A part of the floor slid open, and Zeke stared down into a dark pit. It looked deep. Too deep. Your trial begins now, the elder said. Survive, and you may stand among us. Double quotes. Zeke stared at the pit. What's down there? No one answered. Thuril's voice broke the silence. You have one choice. Climb down. or go back to the humans? Zeke clenched his fists. He would. Not go back. Not yet. Not like this dot without another word. He climbed down into the pit. The walls were slick and cold, the air damp and full of whispers. At the bottom, he found himself in a vast cavern. Faint light glowed from cracks in the rocks, casting strange shadows that moved even when he stood still. Something was watching. Him? He could feel it dot, and came a sound. A low growl, deep and angry. Zeke spun around, and out of the darkness stepped a creature. It was huge, twice his height, its body black and glassy like obsidian. Its eyes burned bright white. It circled him slowly, sniffing the air. Human, it hissed, though its mouth never moved. Zeke took a step back, his heart pounding. "I'm not," he started to say, but the creature lunged at him. He ducked just in time, the creature's claws scraping the stone. He scrambled away, slipping on the rocks, his chest burning with fear. The creature growled again, louder this time. Prove yourself or be eaten. Zeke's mind raced. No weapon, no plan, just himself. He closed his eyes and tried to remember what Thurl had told him on the shuttle. You are both. Human and us. Use it. When the creature lunged again, Zeke moved. But this time, he didn't just run. He grabbed a sharp rock from the ground, and at the last second, he twisted sideways and struck the creature across its leg. It roared in pain, but didn't fall. Instead, it stared at him, and for the first time, smiled. Better, it said. Then it melted into mist and disappeared. The cavern grew quiet. The air felt warmer now. On the far wall, a door of light appeared. Zeke walked toward it, his legs shaking, his hands scraped and bleeding. But inside, something strange had started to grow. A small, fierce pride. When he climbed back out of the pit, the elders stood waiting. The tallest one spoke. You faced the darkness, and you lived. Zeke wiped the sweat from his brow. I'm not afraid, he said, though his voice still trembled. The elder tilted their head. Not yet. Behind them, Thurl watched silently. But Zeke thought he saw the faintest flicker of approval in his eyes. Rest now, the elder said. Your next trial begins soon. As Zeke walked back into the city, he felt all the eyes on him again. But this time, they were different. Not warm, not kind, but sharper, heavier. Someone whispered as he passed. Maybe he is one of us after all. But another muttered. Or maybe he's something worse. Zeke kept walking, his jaw tight. He didn't know what was waiting in the next trial. He didn't know if these people would ever truly accept him. But he knew one thing now. He wasn't just a scared, awkward alien kid anymore. He was something else. And they were about to find out what. The trial next morning, Zeke stood at the edge of a vast arena. The sky above was dark and heavy, clouds swirling in strange patterns. Cold wind blew across the stone floor. The air smelled faintly of smoke and iron. He was not alone this time. On the far side of the arena stood 3 others, aliens like him, but taller, sharper, stronger. Their eyes glowed faintly. They wore black armor, and each of them carried a long spear. Zeke had no armor, no weapon, just himself. Around the arena, hundreds of his people sat silently in the stands, their faces hidden in shadows. They watched him with the same sharp eyes, waiting to see if he would fail. An elder's voice echoed through the arena. The second trial begins. Survive. Prove you belong. Then the ground beneath Zeke shook. A loud, deep boom rolled through the air. He stumbled, but stayed on his feet. The 3 armored challengers began to move toward him, slowly at first, their spears dragging across the stone, leaving sparks. Zeke's hands clenched into fists. He could feel his heart pounding in his. Chest, he whispered to himself. Don't run. Don't look weak. He stood his ground. The first challenger struck. Lightning fast, the spear flashed toward Zeke's head. He barely ducked in time. The tip sliced across his cheek, leaving a burning line of pain. He staggered back, but something inside him flared. Anger, maybe, or pride. When the second challenger lunged, Zeke grabbed the shaft of the spear, twisted, and yanked it free. The armored alien hissed, surprised, as Zeke flipped the spear and pointed it back at them. The crowd stirred. Faint murmurs rippled through the stands. But then the third challenger moved. Faster than the others. Stronger. It slammed into Zeke's chest and sent him sprawling across the floor. The spear clattered away. Zeke gasped, struggling to breathe. The stone was cold under his hands. The elder's voice rang out again. Rise. So he did. His knees shook, his chest burned, but he stood up. The challengers circled him now, moving like wolves, their eyes bright and hungry. And then something strange happened. The air around Zeke shimmered, faint at first, then brighter. A soft, blue glow rose from his skin. The crowd gasped. Zeke didn't understand it himself, but he felt alive, stronger, human and alien at once. When the first challenger struck again, Zeke caught the spear barehanded. The wood burned his palms, but he didn't let go. He yanked the challenger forward and slammed his shoulder into its chest. The armored figure crashed to the ground. The second one came at him from behind. Zeke spun, faster than he thought possible, and kicked the spear from its hands. Now only the third remained. This one paused, watching him carefully. Then it raised its hands, and the ground itself cracked open. Black mist poured out, swirling into a monstrous shape. Huge claws, long teeth, and empty, white eyes. The creature stepped out of the mist and roared. Zeke's legs froze. The thing was massive, bigger than the one he'd faced in the pit. It towered over him, its breath hot and sour. He thought of running, just for a second. But then he heard something in his mind. Mia's voice, faint but clear. You're just like us, Zeke. Stronger than you think. He took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and charged. The crowd gasped again. He ducked under the creature's claws, grabbed one of its legs, and climbed. His fingers burned as he pulled himself higher, ignoring the roar in his ears. The creature thrashed and shook, but he held on tight. At the top, he saw the creature's glowing eyes. Without thinking, he slammed his fist into one of them. Light exploded. The creature let out a scream that rattled the stones. Then it crumbled into smoke and was gone. The arena fell silent. Zeke stood in the center of the floor, his chest rising and falling. His hands bled, his knees shook, but he stayed on his feet. The elder's voice came again, softer now. You have passed. The crowd murmured. Some still looked doubtful. Others, almost impressed. The three challengers got to their knees, heads bowed. Even the one who had summoned the creature lowered its eyes. Zeke's hands dropped to his sides. He didn't feel like a winner, not yet, but something in him had changed. He no longer felt small. He no longer felt just human, or just alien. He felt like both. Thor ill appeared at the edge of the arena. He didn't smile, but his eyes gleamed faintly as he spoke. You're learning. Zeke met his gaze and replied, hoarse but steady. And I'm not done. That night, Zeke sat alone outside the arena, staring at the alien stars. His whole body ached. His hands trembled. But he couldn't stop thinking about what he had seen. In himself. That strange light, that strength. He wondered what it meant. He wondered what was coming next. Behind him, quiet footsteps approached. Thurl's voice came softly. The next trial will not be about strength. It will be about choice. Zeke didn't turn around. Choice? He asked. Yes, Thurl said. And that is where most fail. Zeke stared at the stars, his jaw tight. Then I won't fail. But inside, he wasn't sure. Far away, in the darkness beyond the mountains, something stirred. A shadow. Bigger and colder than anything he had yet faced. And it was waiting for him. Missing Humanity night was colder than usual. Zeke stood at the highest tower of the alien city, looking down at the glowing streets below. The air smelled of metal and smoke. The stars above felt far away, almost like they were watching him. He had passed 2 trials already. He had fought beasts, stood against challengers, and even found a strange power inside himself. But something still didn't feel right. He couldn't stop thinking of Earth.Mia S smile. The sound of humans laughing in the park. The warm sunlight. Through the trees, he wondered if they even missed him, or if they had already forgotten. Behind him, Thurl appeared without a sound. You're awake late, Thurl said quietly. Zeke didn't turn. Can't sleep, he answered. You should rest. The next trial? What is it? Zeke interrupted. He glanced at Thurl, his eyes sharp. You keep saying there are more trials. What's the point? To break me? To make me like them? He gestured to the silent, watching city below. Thurl was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke. You are already not like them, but perhaps you are also not like yourself. Zeke frowned. That's not an answer. But before Thurl could reply, a strange sound echoed through the air, a faint, distant hum. Low and eerie, like a song from far underground. Thor ill froze. His eyes narrowed. Zeke noticed. What is that? Thurl didn't answer. Instead, he moved quickly to the edge of the tower and peered into the distance. Zeke followed his gaze and saw something. A flicker of light far beyond the mountains. Small at first, then bigger, and a thin black smoke rising into the sky. Stay here, Thurl ordered. Then he leapt from the tower and vanished into the night. But Zeke didn't stay. Next morning, whispers ran through the city. They found something at the mines. A ship, not ours. Humans. Zeke froze when he heard that last word. He pushed through the crowd, ignoring the stares, until he reached the gates. Guards tried to stop him, but his skin glowed faint blue, and they backed away. He climbed aboard a transport craft and headed toward the mines. The mines lay at the edge of the world, deep scars in the black earth where strange metals were dug. The air here was heavy and bitter, and nothing grew. Zeke climbed down into the largest pit. At the bottom, he found Thurl waiting. You shouldn't be here, Thurl said flatly. Zeke ignored him and looked past him and stopped breathing. There, half buried in the dirt, was a human shuttle. Small, white, with a broken wing. Its surface was scorched and cracked, but the human flag was still visible on the side. Zeke stepped closer, his heart hammering. That's a rescue ship, he whispered. What is it doing here? Thurl's expression was unreadable. Open it, Zeke demanded. Thurl shook his head. Not your concern. Zeke's hands curled into fists. Not my concern? Those are my people. Before Thurl could stop him, Zeke climbed onto the wreck and pried the hatch open. The metal groaned, but finally gave way. Inside, the air was cold and stale. The walls were cracked. Lights flickered weakly. And there, huddled at the back, were 3 humans, a man, a woman, and a young boy. They were unconscious, but alive. Their clothes were torn, their faces pale. Zeke's chest tightened. He recognized the woman. She was a teacher from his old school, Miss Riley. She had given him books when no one else would. He stumbled back, his mind spinning. Why are they here? He asked. Thurl stood at the hatch, his eyes cold. They came looking for you, but they are intruders. They broke our laws. Zeke stared at him in disbelief. They came. For me, and you just left them here to die? Thurl's jaw tightened. Their lives are not worth more than the balance of this world. You're wrong, Zeke said, his voice low but steady. You're all wrong. He turned back to the humans and crouched down. He touched Miss Riley's shoulder gently. She stirred, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw him, she gasped weakly. Zeke? Is it really you? His throat tightened. Yeah, it's me. She reached out and grabbed his hand. We came to bring you back. Her words hit him like a hammer. Back to Earth. Home dot, but before he could reply, a loud horn sounded above them. Sharp and angry dot guards were coming. Dozens of them. They had been discovered. Thurl stepped aside, his voice like ice. If you help them, you become their enemy. Zeke rose slowly, standing between the humans and the guards. He felt that strange light rise inside him again. Brighter this time, hotter. His skin glowed blue. His veins sparkled like stars. Then I guess, he said, his voice calm, I was always their enemy. The first guard charged, and Zeke moved, faster than before, stronger than before. He grabbed the guard's staff, snapped it in two, and sent him flying back. The other guards hesitated, but then they attacked all at once. Zeke fought with everything he had. His blood sang. His heart roared. He was alien and human, both and neither. When it was over, the guards lay scattered across the mine floor. The humans stared at him in shock and awe. Thurl watched from the shadows. For the first time, there was a trace of something in his eyes. Fear. Zeke turned back to the humans. We're getting out of here, he said. All of us. Ms. Riley looked at him, still shaking. You'll never make it. Zeke helped her to her feet. Watch me. Behind him, on the horizon, more ships rose into the sky, black and massive. They would be coming for him soon, but Zeke didn't care anymore. He had chosen his side, and he would burn down this whole world before he let it take them from him. The rescued minds burned behind them. Zeke led the three humans through narrow black tunnels, the sharp smell of smoke filling the air. Above them, alarms blared, long, cold, metallic sounds echoing across the planet. Thurl's words still rang in his mind. If you help them, you become their enemy. Fine, Zeke thought. Then I'll be their enemy. He tightened his grip on Ms. Riley's hand, pulling her forward. The boy stumbled behind him, too weak to run, so Zeke lifted him easily and carried him on his back. They had to move fast. Already. He could hear the sound of boots behind them. A hunting squad. Their heavy steps pounded the stone like a drumbeat. After what felt like hours, the tunnel opened into a wide underground cavern. At the far end, a faint light glowed. The surface. Zeke stopped for a second to catch his breath. The humans collapsed. Around him, coughing and shaking. Miss Riley looked up at him. Her voice was weak, but her eyes were full of fire. Why? Are you doing this? They'll kill you for this. Zeke stared at her for a long moment. Then he said simply, because you came for me. Before she could reply, a sharp voice echoed through the cavern. Zeke, he froze. He knew that voice. Thor ill. He turned slowly. At the mouth of the tunnel stood Thurl, his dark robes flowing behind him, his eyes cold and sharp. Behind him, a squad of armored guards spread out, blocking the way back. Thurl stepped forward. You've made your choice, he said softly, but it's not too late to stop. Zeke set the boy down gently and stepped between the humans and Thurl. Yes, Zeke said. It is. Thurl tilted his head, almost curious. Then fight. He raised his hand, and the guards charged. Zeke's skin flared bright blue as he moved. He met the first guard head-on, grabbing their spear and snapping it in half. His fist slammed into another's chest plate, sending them flying, but there were too many. He ducked a strike, rolled, and kicked another to the ground, but for every one he knocked down, 2 more closed in. Behind him, the humans huddled together. Terrified, Miss Is, Riley called out, "Zeke, you can't fight them all." But he didn't answer. His breath came in hard gasps. His muscles burned, but he refused to stop Dot, and he felt at Dot a sharp pain in his side. He looked down and saw a blade buried deep in his ribs. The light in his skin flickered. His knees buckled. The guards closed in. Around him, Thurl watched from the shadows, his face calm. "You can't win," Thurl said softly. Zeke fell to one knee. The room spun. The guards raised their weapons. But then, he heard it, a faint voice. "You're stronger than you think." Mia's voice, or maybe just his memory of her. Either way, it lit something inside him. Zeke's single quotes S hands hit the stone floor, and the ground cracked beneath him. The air shimmered. A blinding blue light exploded from his body, knocking the guards backward. The cavern shook. Rocks fell from the ceiling. When the light faded, Zeke stood tall, his eyes glowing like stars. The blade in his ribs clattered to the floor. His skin had healed. Thor took a step back. "What are you?" Thurl whispered. Zeke's single quotes S voice was low and steady. "Everything you're afraid of." Then he moved faster than before. The guards didn't even have time to react. He tore through them like lightning, disarming them, sending them crashing into the walls. In less than a minute, the cavern was silent. Thurl stared at him. Unreadable. Then he slowly lowered his head. "You've already lost," Thurl murmured. "They'll hunt you forever now." Zeke glared at him. "Let them try." He turned and ran to the humans. Miss Riley stared at him, wide-eyed, but she didn't flinch when he took her hand. "Again, we're leaving," he said. The surface was worse than he expected. When they emerged from the cavern, the sky above was black with storm clouds. Enormous alien ships hovered over the city, dark and silent, like predators circling prey. Sirens screamed in the distance. The whole planet seemed awake now, hunting him. Zeke shielded the humans with his body as they ran through empty streets. Shadows moved in the corners, hunters, waiting. Then he saw at the edge of the city, a ship, small, fast, human-made, probably part of the shuttle that had crashed. He pushed the humans toward it. "Get inside," he shouted. But as they ran for the ship, another sound cut through the air, louder than all the alarms. A roar. Zeke froze. He knew that sound. From the sky, a massive creature descended, black as night, wings like knives, eyes blazing white. It was the same kind of monster he had fought in the pit, but bigger, stronger. It landed between them and the ship, its claws digging into the stone, its tail whipping through the air. Zeke stepped forward. "Go," he told the humans. "I'll hold it off." Double quotes Missy. Riley shook her head. "You'll die." He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but not before you're safe." Then he lunged at the creature. The fight was brutal. The creature struck like a storm, its claws slicing through stone. Zeke dodged, rolled, struck back, his fists glowing, his body blazing with blue light. Every hit he landed cracked the creature's armor, but it kept coming. Finally, it grabbed him, lifting him high into the air. Below, the human screamed. Zeke closed his eyes. Then he let the light inside him explode. A wave of energy shot out, blinding and hot. The creature shrieked and dropped him. It staggered backward, its body cracking apart. Zeke landed hard. His chest heaving, he didn't stop. He ran at the creature, grabbed its head in both hands, and with a final burst of power, tore it apart. The monster dissolved into black smoke. Silence fell. The humans were already inside the ship. The engines roared to life. Zeke stumbled toward them, his legs weak, his vision blurry. Missa. Riley leaned out of the hatch and grabbed his arm, pulling him in. As the ship lifted off, Zeke collapsed into a seat, staring down at the burning city. Below. Ms. Riley put a hand on his shoulder. "You didn't have to save us," she whispered. He met her eyes. "Yes, I did." Outside the window, the planet grew smaller, fading into darkness. But Zeke knew it wasn't over. Somewhere down there, in the shadows, Thurl was watching, and he was smiling. The truth ship soared through the stars, leaving the alien world. Far behind. Zeke sat near the window, watching the planet shrink into nothing but a faint blue speck. His hands still glowed faintly, the light under his skin flickering like a dying flame. He was tired, more tired than he had ever felt before. But his mind was wide awake. Miss Riley sat across from him, holding the young boy in her lap. The man sat quietly at the back, staring at the floor. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Miss Riley broke the silence. "You saved us. All of us. Why?" Zeke didn't look at her. "Because someone had to," he said softly. Then, after a pause, "Because they never would." She frowned. "Who?" Zeke's jaw tightened. "My people." Hours passed. Outside the window, the stars stretched into long streaks of light. The ship hummed softly, but the silence inside felt heavier than before. When the others finally fell asleep, Zeke slipped quietly into the cockpit. The controls glowed faintly under his fingers. He stared at the navigation screen and saw something that made his chest tighten. The ship wasn't going to Earth. He leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. The coordinates showed a completely different path, deeper into space, toward something called the Vault. Zeke's single quotes, breath caught in his throat. He had heard that name before, once, whispered in the shadows of his trials. The vault is where the truth sleeps. His hands hovered over the controls. For a moment, he considered changing the course. But then he stopped. If the vault held answers, maybe he needed them. He sat back and let the ship keep flying. Hours later, a faint voice woke him. "You really think you can run from us?" Zeke's eyes snapped open. The cockpit was dark, but in the reflection of the glass, he saw a figure standing. Behind him, tall, dark, familiar. Thor ill. Zeke spun around, but no one was there. Just a faint echo of Thurl's voice in his head. "You can run to the ends of the stars. It won't matter. The truth will still find you." Zeke's skin crawled, but he didn't speak. Finally, the ship reached its destination. The vault. It wasn't a planet. It wasn't even a station. It was something else, a colossal black cube, floating in space, bigger than a city, glowing faintly at the edges. Strange lights circled it, moving in patterns that made his head hurt if he stared too long. Miss Riley woke and stumbled to the cockpit, her eyes wide when she saw it. "What is that?" she whispered. Zeke's single quotes S voice was flat. "The vault." "What's inside?" He shook his head slowly. "Everything." The ship docked at the edge of the cube. The hatch opened with a hiss, and cold air poured inside. Zeke stepped out first, the humans following hesitantly behind him. The surface of the vault was smooth and black, but it felt alive under his feet. Like it was breathing. At the center stood a massive door covered in alien symbols. Zeke walked up to it. His hand reached out on its own. As soon as his skin touched the door, it flared with light and slowly swung open. Inside, The air was thick and heavy. A huge circular chamber stretched out before them, the walls lined with glowing pillars. In the center floated a sphere of light, and within it, swirling images. Zeke stepped closer. The light brightened, and suddenly the images came into focus. He saw Earth, oceans, forests, cities. Then he saw alien ships, descending on it, locusts. Humans, burning, screaming. And then he saw himself, standing between the two worlds. Both armies aimed at him. He stumbled back, shaking his head. What is this? A deep, cold voice echoed through the chamber. Your purpose. Zeke spun around, but there was no one there. The voice continued. You are the bridge, the weapon, the answer. Zeke's heart pounded. What do you mean? You are what they made you to be. He froze, half human, half us. But more than both. You are their greatest fear and their only hope. Zeke clenched his fists. No, you're lying. You've already felt it, the voice whispered. The power, the light. It is not a gift. It is a weapon. And when the time comes, you will choose who burns. The sphere flared again, and he saw himself in the future, standing on a battlefield. Earth behind him, the alien planet before him, and fire everywhere. He screamed and stumbled back. The light fading. Miss Riley grabbed his arm. What did you see? She demanded. Zeke couldn't speak. Because now he knew the truth. He was never meant to belong to Earth, to the aliens. He was meant to destroy one of them, and the choice would be his. Behind him, the door to the vault slammed shut. And in the us, shadows far away, Thurl watched through the void, his eyes glowing faintly. Soon, Thurl whispered to himself, he will choose, and when he does, everything ends. Zeke stood in the silence of the vault, his hands trembling. He stared at the sphere one last time. Then let them come, he whispered, because if he was going to burn a world, he would make sure it was the right one. I'm basically human. And Alien's vault was silent. Now. Zeke stood alone in the center of the chamber, the humans waiting behind him near the door. The sphere of light above him still glowed faintly, showing flashes of the future war. Fire, screams, choices. His hands trembled. His chest felt heavy. You will choose who burns, the voice in the vault had said. That is why you were made. Zeke shut his eyes and tried to block it out. But he couldn't. He could still see the battlefield. Earth in flames, or the alien cities crumbling into dust. And always, himself at the center. The bridge, the weapon, the answer. He opened his eyes and stared into the light. What if I choose no one? He asked aloud. There was no answer. Only silence. Then, you cannot. The chamber shook suddenly. The light above cracked, and the floor beneath his feet split open. The humans cried out, stumbling backward. Zeke spun around to face them. Get to the ship, he shouted. Mrs. Riley shook her head. Not without you. But Zeke just glared. Go, now. The humans ran. The door to the vault slammed shut behind them, sealing Zeke inside. He turned back to the sphere and felt it pull him upward, toward itself. When he opened his eyes again, he was somewhere else. He stood on a battlefield. But this was not the future. This was now. On one side stood the alien army, thousands of sharp, dark figures, their weapons glowing, their eyes burning. On the other side stood humans, soldiers, tanks, jets in the sky, guns raised, and between them, Zeke. Both sides shouted at him. Choose us. You belong with us. Destroy them. You're one of us. Kill them all. The noise grew louder. The ground shook. The sky split open with lightning. Zeke dropped to his knees. Clutching his head, He could feel the power inside him now, stronger than ever. Hot, alive, waiting. Both sides moved closer, both ready to destroy the other, both trusting him to finish it. His skin glowed blue and white, brighter and brighter, until the soldiers stopped shouting and simply stared at him in awe and terror. He stood slowly. His voice was calm but sharp, as a blade. "Stop." But neither side stopped. "I said," he growled, louder this time. "Stop." The ground cracked. A wave of blinding light erupted from him, throwing soldiers from both sides to the ground. The sky above cleared. Silence. Zeke stood tall in the center of the battlefield. His eyes glowed. His veins burned like stars. "Listen to me," he shouted, his voice carrying across the field. "You all keep saying I have to choose. You keep saying I'm either one of you or the other." He looked first at the humans. "You called me alien. You laughed when I was different. You never let me forget I didn't belong." Then he turned to the aliens. "And you tried to break me, tried to turn me into your weapon. You wanted me to destroy them because you were too afraid to fight your own battles." Both sides were silent now, watching, waiting. Zeke clenched his fists, his power humming louder and louder. "But here's the truth," he said, his voice steady. "I'm not just human, and I'm not just alien. I'm both." The humans shifted, uncomfortably. The aliens frowned. Zeke stepped forward, his light so bright it lit up the whole field. "You think that makes me weak, but it doesn't. It makes me stronger than all of you." He raised his hands. The air shimmered. The ground glowed. The weapons in everyone's hands shattered into dust. Both armies gasped and fell back. "I don't choose either of you," Zeke said. "I choose myself." The sky above split open, not with fire this time, but with a wave of light. Soft, calm, powerful. Zeke let the light flow through him, and when it spread out, it touched every soldier on the field, human and alien, alike, and forced their weapons from their hands, forced the hate out of their hearts. For the first time in centuries, the battlefield fell completely quiet. The soldiers lowered their heads. Some dropped to their knees. Some even wept. Zeke stood there, his breathing heavy, his light finally dimming. He looked at both sides, tired but unbroken. "Fight again," he warned softly. "And next time, I won't stop at your weapons." Then he turned his back and walked away. Later, when the humans and the aliens finally left the field, Miss Riley found him sitting on a hill, staring at the stars. She sat beside him. "So, what now?" she asked quietly. Zeke didn't answer for a long time. Then he smiled faintly. "I don't know," he admitted. "But wherever I go, I'll go as me." Ms. Riley nodded. "You did good," she said softly. He glanced at her, his glowing eyes fading back to normal. "I'm basically grown," he said. Then, after a pause, added, "human and alien." She laughed, shaking her head. "That you are." He leaned back, watching the sky, full of stars, some familiar, some strange. And for the first time, he didn't feel torn anymore. He didn't feel lost. He felt whole. And somewhere, far away, Thurl watched through the shadows. He smiled faintly to himself and whispered, "Maybe." He was never ours to control. And then he vanished into the darkness. Zeke stood and stretched, feeling the quiet strength inside him. He turned to Miss Riley and the others and grinned. "Come on," he said. "Let's go home." And together they walked toward the horizon, toward whatever came next, the end.